Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of Friday Morning at the Funhouse alongside my good friend and Canadian legend, Mr. Martin Popoff. What's going on, Martin?
Yes, morning, sir. Nothing much. Just getting ready to do this. We're going to be talking about cold albums, so it fits with what's happening up here in Toronto. It's definitely getting a little cooler now.
Same here.
Yeah, fall is definitely here.
I think it was like 57 degrees when I woke up this morning. So that's a little chilly. That's a little chilly. I think it'll warm up today, but during the day. But yeah, we're the colder months are coming, and we even got a little bit of rain the other day. Woohoo! Nice. Cause for celebration. My lawn is still brown, but I need a little more. But anyway, yeah. So today, we've been talking a lot about album covers and what we can do with album covers. And I apologize if you hear our new puppy kind of crying in the background. So she's a little upset here this morning. But so we decided to kind of like take a look at album covers that give you like a cold feeling. So either they depict like cold terrain, snowy weather, or something about the pictures just is, the cover image is just, it's cold feeling. Not necessarily, doesn't have to be anything to do with snow or freezing temperatures, or maybe it shows off a setting that is going to be cold, whatever. So Martin and I have kind of poured through our CD and album collections and kind of tried to pick album covers that just leave you feeling a little bit cold. And it may or may not have anything to do with the music on the inside. That's what we're going to kind of talk about here. So with that, I'll have Martin, if you want to add any other words, and kick us off with your first couple of selections.
Yeah, so I guess this kind of popped off, as it were, when we talked about the basically the general album cover show, how album covers affect you, and then we got into this thing about the Pat Travers albums being really hot, and then we thought, oh, let's do cold album covers or whatever, right? So to make this interesting, as I kind of went through it, like I originally had thought, strictly thinking weather, right? And then as I'm going through it, I'm thinking, oh yeah, so how does it line up with the music inside? So this is a little bit similar to the whole idea of how does the album cover affect what you think of inside, but in a specific way. So I've kind of got these in clumps of themes, and it brings up a little bit. Well, let's start with this one here. So I did a podcast episode of History in 5 Songs on blue album covers that were second albums, and I thought, those two things together combined, and what did it make me think of it? And then I did one called white album disappointments, or white cover disappointments, and how, simply because you had white album covers, you were comparing them in your head with other white album covers, more so if it was close to around the same year, the same kind of music. But I bring up the blue because I wanted to talk about Blue Oyster Cult real briefly here quickly. So I started thinking, what are the cold Blue Oyster Cult album covers? And then I thought, the ones that always leave me cold that line up are the black and white periods. So the idea of black and white is something that I think leaves me a little cold. And then combined with the music and clothes, this is kind of their older, I sometimes describe it as clankier sort of music. But I think of these Gallic album covers, and I think they're cold because there's no people on them either. There's a loneliness or a lack of communication. There's no band photos, right? So you're thinking, that looks like a cold sort of lunar surface. Then I thought, the funny thing about Blue Oyster Cult is that you normally associate, and I've got a lot of examples here of these cold album covers. They tend to go, because it is cold and blue and maybe wintry, or they tend to go blue essentially, right? So Blue Oyster Cult's got that in the name of the band. But then I started looking at them. They've got some blue album covers that aren't particularly cold feeling. They actually kind of feel like the temperature's fairly hot on them. And so, the fact of the matter is, I think later Blue Oyster Cult doesn't feel particularly cold anyways. The later music combined with, this looks like a hellscape, right? It doesn't look particularly cold, but yet it's blue. This was my first choice that I was going to pick. And then I thought, no, this is not cold. This is basically a hot desert scene, but it's blue. And then I thought, well, this looks like a nice summer night in the flyover country, breadbasket of America sort of shot. and that doesn't look particularly cold either. And the music's not cold on here either. And then you got a band shot, right? So to me, with Blue Oyster Cult, it's a little bit of a different kind of cold with them. It's the black and white period, and just the idea of black and white being cold.
Yeah, it's a good choice. You know, the interesting thing about Club Ninja is you have that kind of like space setting, and I always equate like space settings with this feeling of isolation, which isolation to me also equates to cold.
Yes,
which is kind of weird, and I have a bunch of examples of that. So yeah, there's some good choices there, and to kind of play off on that kind of isolation and coldness. The first thing that I thought of when we spoke about doing this was black metal bands.
Yeah.
Which, you know, I could have, my side of the show could have been all black metal album covers, because they are notorious for these very stark, chilling scenes and images of, you know, the Norway forests and frost-bitten landscapes and all that sort of thing. So it's isolating and it's cold at the same time. So I just picked a couple here, and just to kind of, because I didn't want, like I said, I didn't want to do a whole episode of these type of things. So this is Frost by Enslaved.
Yeah.
So right there, you know, no people, no animals, no nothing. It's basically like, you know, so you have this semi, you know, the river looks cold. You've got the kind of the fog and the hills, and it doesn't get more isolating than that. And I think that's one of the things that when you listen to a lot of these Norwegian black metal bands, especially the early guard, you know, the classic bands from the early 90s, like Enslaved, like Mayhem, like Immortal, the music is the way it's produced, it's very cold, it's very primal, and they use atmosphere in a great way. And a lot of times when I listen to like black metal, especially some of the older stuff, I feel like I'm listening to it like I should be out in the middle of like a forest in the middle of winter, all by myself. No houses, nothing else around, and you just feel completely isolated. And the music is chilling like that. So this, I mean, perfectly, I think, exemplifies the music that's contained within the album. And then you have, and this is perfect for the show, At the Heart of Winter by Immortal. So right there, I mean, there you have this kind of weird, kind of like fantasy looking winter scene, right, out in the woods somewhere, and then you turn it over and there's the guys, right? Pretty cool looking, again, black and white with little hints of slight hints of blue hues in the coloring there. So there's that, and then not a black metal band, but a Finnish kind of folk metal, death metal band, Amorphous. So there, this is the beginning of times, and there you have again the kind of the use of fog, I think, is really, really well done. A lot of these like Scandinavian bands, and again, you've got like this kind of water scene below, some trees with really not much on them. That's another kind of theme through a lot of mine, where you have trees without leaves, signaling the coming of colder weather. So I think this is you know, very, very chilling looking album cover. Again, may or may not depict some of the music within Amorphous's music. I wouldn't say is necessarily cold like the black metal bands, but it does have that sort of effect, and I think it you know, perfectly gives you an idea of what you're in store for within the music.
Nice. Yeah. And, you know, I mentioned black and white with Blue Oyster Cult, and then I think, you know, black and white can go the other way, like the Charles Peterson Sub Pop thing, where it's like smeary live stuff that in a hot and sweaty club. But with the black metal bands, the very early stuff had that really grainy black and white thing where you think they're rehearsing in a place with the heat off. You know, it's not that they haven't paid for their heat. It's like it's part of the aesthetic. It's like, okay, we're gonna rehearse and write this music in the freezing cold in our rehearsal room or whatever, right? So you get that coldness of even the claustrophobic spaces where they've got, you know, you just see like one corpse painted guy grainy in the background in this dark black room or whatever, or you've got, like you say, the outside nature stuff. So that'll transition into I'll mention kind of along a similar theme then, and literally starting with the same band. You know, Amorphous, the same thing. So I think what you get with Amorphous is also the idea of, you know, a Finnish band. So there's a lot of nature to Finland, and it is a cold country, and there's a lot of naturalism and the Kalevala and all the sort of folk tales and all that stuff. Obviously, that's from long time ago when people lived out in the cold. And then early on, you've got Tales from the Thousand Lakes, and literally the Black Winter Day EP, which is, you can't get much more, cold of a title as Black Winter Day, which brings in another idea how these titles work with this. And then just to keep it Finnish, I guess you've also got the idea of Stradivarius album covers, and part of this is there's kind of like frosty leaves and cold steel to the graphics. Part of this is that graphics aesthetic of the early computer graphics using the cold steel sort of thing. And part of it is also a lot of these bands we love from this mid 90s to 2000s metal period generally tended to have these bluish looking album covers, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so Scandinavia, I guess, is a little bit of a theme there. Here, I'll mention one more here and then turn it back to you. Evergreen, same sort of thing. Tom England's cathartic lyrics. It's very psychological of what goes on, and the music's really passionate, right? So the Evergreen stuff has that cold isolation, cold icy feel. There's another one. So again, there's a little bit of the idea of literally this bluish purple. We used to joke about the purple album covers of Metal Blade during that time, right? There's sort of an aesthetic around here. One more with the Hammerfall, right?
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
That's a very icy one, right?
Yeah.
So there's your kind of European, Scandinavian, trending towards the purple blue album covers theme, and trending towards reminding you of the great outdoors that they have there.
Yep. Yeah. We could have done this whole show on on a lot of those, because there's a ton more. All right, kind of pivoting just a little bit. So how about those album covers that you see them and it explains kind of like the changing of the seasons, sort of, right? So here is a perfect one. Anybody who's ever lived in New York, or specifically New York City, know that certain things, when you're changing over from fall into winter, there's certain things that you see in New York City all the time that are unmistakable, and you associate with the coming of the colder weather. This is absolutely perfect. I thought this was like a last minute one. Steely Dan Pretzel Logic. So there you have the hot pretzel guy, right? I mean, this is classic New York City in the late fall, early winter. The hot pretzel guy who's bundled up with his little cart, right? You always see the steam and the smoke rising off of the little charcoal briquettes that he's got there. Maybe he's got the chestnuts. Yep, he's got chestnuts and peanuts and hot pretzels. 15 cents for a hot pretzel, Martin, man, that's a long time ago. Yeah. You're not even gonna get a grain of salt on from the pretzel for 15 cents anymore. But as you can see, all the trees, not a lot of trees in New York City, but this is probably near Central Park, and all the trees are bare. You can see the steam and the smoke rising. He's obviously bundled up. He's got the hat. So perfect. You look at this album cover, you're like, oh yes, late fall, early winter in New York City. Absolutely perfect. And kind of similar. Here we have Paul McCartney and Wings, London Town. So we've got Denny Lane, Linda McCartney, and Paul McCartney all bundled up. I guess that's the River Thames right there in London. And obviously Paul has got his his collar up, and they look cold, right? And you feel the chill off the water, just like they probably were when they were shooting this particular album cover. And again, the music on here, Steely Dan, I think this is obviously a little more lively, and I would say the music is cold here. But this particular Wings album is a little on the cold side. It's kind of folky. It's kind of it's not as lively as some of their other ones. This is a very mellow album for them. So I guess the music inside is very similar to the cover in a way. And then here's a weird one. So this one, the picture doesn't make you feel cold, but the reason why they've got the fire lit on magnums on a storyteller's night is because it's probably really cold outside. So here they've got the fire roaring on the inside. They're all kind of bundling up next to it. So that gives you the feeling that outside of this setting, it's probably damn cold and right in the middle of winter. So here they are telling stories in front of a fire, and that's what people do. It's chilly outside. You start a fire, you tell stories, right?
Yeah.
So
Nice.
and I'll throw one more out before I turn it back over to you. So again, this one, fall. Okay, most people think fall, weather's starting to get colder. Wind and Wuthering by Genesis. Again, you've got the leaves falling off the tree here. You've got leaves still on the tree, but on the back, the tree's bare. It's kind of foggy. It's kind of desolate. The music on this album also is Genesis at their kind of most mysterious and kind of folky on this one as well. So I think this one, again, kind of gives you that feeling of, all right, things are about to get even colder. And, what was going on in the Genesis camp at the time. Hackett's ready to leave. Gabriel's already gone. So there's, that going on. So I thought this was kind of a good fit for this as well. Back to you.
Nice. Okay. All right. So this is definitely a left field example. AC/DC, The Razor's Edge. So why I've always considered this a cold one. So there's a couple of reasons here. So it's called The Razor's Edge, so you think of cold steel a little bit. It's definitely, it's gray, it's cold. So you think touching that, brushed metal would be cold. But it also has Mistress for Christmas on it. So like they're saying, oh, okay, so it's there for a reason. It's there because the album came out in September 21st, 1990. So they're leading up to Christmas and they're thinking, hey, let's have our Christmas hit sort of thing. But I've always felt, and again, signaled a little bit by the cover. And again, I noticed in the comments of our previous show, someone made a really good point about how, this is a negative thing to let the album cover in a way affect what you think of the music. There's a little bit of like dissonant visual pollution to it. You're not supposed to have this happen, but it does. And again, this is another example of this happening where I always think of the cold snare and bass drum sound of Chris Slade on this album. This is a very like hard, unforgiving production. It's not very analog for AC/DC, or for anybody. But I mean, for AC/DC, this is probably the most electro sounding album that they have because of what they did to the drums on this. So yeah, this always struck me as the coldest AC/DC album of a band who's literally probably one of the most warmest sounding bands that there is. And when I think of other albums of theirs, they don't have particularly cold album covers. Flick of the Switch is a weird one. That just causes you to have all sorts of dissonance with what's enclosed because it's not cold music, but it's just got that stark, blinding white album cover. And then Dirty Deeds with the lines over the eyes and that hypnosis, that impersonal. So it's cold because you can't see their eyes, sort of thing, right? But really, most of the rest of them are pretty warm looking album covers. But this one, always, that album cover just immediately makes me think of that snare and that bass drum sound for some reason.
Cool. All right, kind of keeping on with the theme of leaves falling off the tree, fall setting, kind of chilling, misty type of thing. How about the very first Black Sabbath album? Again, you've got this little brook, I guess, over here. This rundown house. You've got all these kind of trees and shrubs with no leaves on it, and then you have this very mysterious looking woman. Right, kind of like this witch sort of aesthetic. This is really cold to me. I always thought this album cover is like, oof. And not only is it cold looking, it's really eerie looking. And then you have the music inside, which is that, right? And that's for a debut album. Here's another one here, Wishbone Ash Argus. Again, you've got this mysterious figure, right? This warrior kind of guy. There's the mist. The CD does not have the little UFO up in the corner like the LP did, but then, the back of the cover, again, it's very stark, not a lot of leaves on the trees, mist, mountains, desolation, right? It's very desolate. He's the only one there looking over. What is he looking at? We don't really know. Let's see. The latest Mastodon, Hushton, Grimm. Okay, again, back to the blacks and the gray and silver. You got this snarling looking tree with no leaves on it, kind of cold looking. Similar type feel, Merciful Fate. from the beginning. I mean, in the shadows, sorry. And again, no leaves on trees, desolate, kind of like fall settings. It's going to be cold. There's a kind of like a evil, a spookiness to this as well. And then my last one for this kind of category is Blackwater Park by Opeth.
Oh wow, yeah, for sure.
So again, I just love this, the kind of the mist and the fog and trees with no leaves on them. And here it's just like, I mean, these trees look like they haven't had leaves on them in ages, right? And then you've got these mysterious kind of figures off in the distance with this weird light, and then more fog on the background and more kind of like stumps and whatnot. It's really chilling. It's very cold looking. Again, it's not really winter, but the winter's coming. And the music on this album is bleak and dark and mysterious, and that's perfect cover for it. So
cool. All right. Okay, so yeah, I'll do another one with a tidy theme to it. The Smiths, with a very cold aesthetic where they're constantly essentially getting grainy old photos that look very cold, and they're either sepia toned or black and white, or they're a little bit treated in some way. They don't say much. They leave you questioning what's going on. They're definitely somber. This is a classic somber old one. The Queen is Dead.
yeah,
Considered one of the great albums of all time. But that's a still from a French film. Rank. Another one, even though it's orange, it's just one, grainy black and white photo. It's just got that bleak Manchester poverty-stricken vibe, right? It's the debut. And then Strange Ways, Here We Come. So yeah, so the idea here is just a cold, gloomy aesthetic. You're supposed to think of, like, growing up in the tenements, in the flats, in the what else do they call them? Council homes, row houses, whatever you want to call them, of Manchester, and being bullied and being, like, abused at school, and how horrible, I've interviewed so many rock stars who've been scarred by their elementary school, public school. That whole thing between public and private, it's confusing with England, but yeah, so it definitely has that Manchester, it's drizzly, it's overcast, it's stormy, sort of vibe, and how bleak it was growing up, and poor, and having the toilet out back at the end of the backyard rather than in the house, and all that sort of stuff, and they've really kept it up with this thing. So again, it's lack of color, it's the graininess, and it's the oldness of these photos. They all feel like just thrown away 50s and 60s photos.
Yeah, they totally do. Yeah, and it's really weird because, like, if you were like a young kid and you're going through the record racks in the store and you see some of those album covers, do they scream like "buy me"?
Yeah, no, not at all. Yeah.
I remember, like, in college when I knew a bunch of people who were into that band, and they would bring in cassettes and stuff. I used to work in a restaurant part-time, going to school, and I had a couple of guys in the kitchen were big fans of them, and they would bring these cassettes, and I would always look at those album covers. I'm like, meanwhile I'm like a metalhead, right? And I'm used to all the Iron Maiden and all that kind of stuff, and I'm looking at these album covers. I'm like, who would buy this? Something looks like this? Not me.
They look like hasty 45 sleeves, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Thrown together 45 sleeves. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Here's a really interesting one. How about Dream Theater, A Change of Seasons? I mean, the whole front cover is just really cleverly put together, because here you have, what appears to be like a winter setting, but yet there's a rose growing out of the snow. The little boy is wearing, next to nothing. He's got a pail and shovel, like he would be on the beach. But then you look at the back, it's like, you got the storm clouds coming in. It's just really, really kind of bizarre, but kind of neat, I think. And then most of the ones that I have left are, they're actually like winter kind of settings. And I'll do a couple, then I'll give it back to Martin. Night of the Storm Rider by Iced Earth. Yeah. Okay. Obviously that is perfect for this. And then we've got Moon Madness from Camel. So again, you've got the the moon, obviously, that's the title of the album, but then everywhere here is this really kind of beautiful, almost like Roger Deanish looking winter setting, but very kind of plain, not a lot going on there. But you look at this and you're like, oh, okay, you just feel like you're sitting out there in the woods with the snow and a little bit of the moonlight going on there. So
all right. So yeah, a theme here for me is also kind of the impersonalness of Hypnosis album covers. So, definitely I want to go with UFO Obsession. And I really feel like this, you definitely feel the cold steel, the cold operating room. And this is, classic. It's very blue. They almost look like they're turning blue because they're so cold, right? There's your back cover. And then, again, just a little bit like the AC/DC, I've always associated that one with kind of a cold, boomy, clanky production sound on it. We talked about how the production sort of it limits my love of the album. I've often called this my favorite UFO album, but really in recent years I've leaned towards the Paul Chapman ones. But to me, that's of a theme with the Lights Out cover, and it's even kind of a theme with No Heavy Petting, which is monochromatic and still very cold and clinical, like some sort of weird experiment, science experiment going on. And even Phenomenon feels a little cold and impersonal.
And Force it certainly too, yeah,
absolutely. Exactly. Yeah. So you're thinking that the cold bathroom, everything you touch is going to be cold.
Metal is metal. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, I took this one out just to show also the band literally being cold in a monochromatic cold. It seems like a cold late night at a gas station in England on tour or whatever, right?
They're all zipped up and everything. Yeah.
Yeah. So it continued on past Obsession, but Obsession is the one for me more than any that really has that vibe where I think of the music being cold at the same time as I think of as the album cover being cold, and it knocks it down to sort of like an 8.5 for me because of that.
Yeah. Kind of along the same lines. So Uriah Heep, I have two examples here for them. So Wonderworld, again, they're are they statues? Are they frozen? Again, the whole use of like the grays and the black and white. Obviously, they're all they're statues to me are cold, and this is very cold. And I think the production and the sound of this album is also the same. This is not one of their warmer sounding records, and so the cover is a perfect indication of what you're in store for. And then I really wanted to showcase something from Roger Dean, but Roger Dean mostly has done these more warmer looking album covers, but one that kind of could be classified here is and again, Uriah Heep, Demons and Wizards. So again, you've got the falls here and everything like that. Are they partially frozen? Is it cold? Looks like you got the space scene, the stars in the background. So this one, out of all of his, and maybe Relayer to an extent, because Relayer from Yes is again with the grays and the whites and the black. But I think this one is one of where it depicts a scene that could be really, really cold. So there's that. And then how about Dust Heart Attack, where you've got the three warriors. For some reason, I always used to think this had like a polar bear on it. I must be thinking about something else. But yeah, this obviously is a winter setting here. They're not very well dressed, Martin, for winter, I will say. Exactly. I'm cold just looking at them there. So, yeah. And that's the hard rock band from the 70s, Dust.
Cool. All right. Yeah, so I'll do one more, and then the rest of these I'm just gonna put in honorable mentions. I do have a bunch of examples here, and we'll just flash through. But I'll give my top example now. Is that cool?
Yeah.
So my coldest, my best, the first one that comes to mind, and then yeah, these other ones we'll just rattle off at the end. But basically, we'll put that one there. So here's the number one record that comes to mind for me. Rush, Grace Under Pressure.
Yep.
Now this is a very cold looking album cover. We don't even know if that's ice or ice mountains or just like an ice wave. And then you've got this icy looking android. Which finger am I gonna? Yeah, there we go. So this icy looking android, and you know, Rush is the ultimate winter band. They're from Canada. Their records usually come out. You know, they seem. I'm not sure if this is completely correct. I haven't checked recently, but they generally come out, I think, leading up to winter in the fall, that kind of thing. And that album's you know, famous for having been recorded in absolutely frigid tundra conditions. You know, there were snowstorms going on. They worked super hard on it. It was really grim, long hours. And you know, they had to change producers and all that kind of thing. And you know, and I thought I was going to bring out Presto to show, not Presto, Test for Echo, but you know, it's a snowy scene, but it actually seems kind of warm. So I thought, you know, it's a sunny day. It seems like a warm day, but I did bring out these two just to show, you know, a little bit more of the whole idea of this is the cold and impersonal thing where it's just like so bleak and simple and no band shot and not even much for graphics that you just think cold, right? And you think, and you're seeing some Cold Steel there and Cold Blue and even you know, this looks kind of overcast and kind of cold. So the whole Hugh Syme aesthetic is definitely like that. So Rush is definitely one band that came to mind for me.
Yeah, and I'll finish off the Rush with of course with Fly By Night.
Yeah.
And of course, you got, you know, By Tor and the Snow Dog is one of the songs on here. You know, Rivendell, and again, a remarkable cover, right, of this giant owl, you know, with the snow all around and the hole underneath him, which I never really understood. But yeah, that's Rush has a bunch of them like that. So.
Yeah, Farewell to Kings even feels kind of cold. I mean,
yeah, totally.
If you know what the weather can do, you know, between Toronto and Buffalo, that was filmed on like a ruin site in Buffalo, and there's, you know, visions and stories of them driving down the highway to go get this done in Buffalo and stuff, and that looks like an absolutely frigid, typical classic Buffalo winter day.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
On that, right? Like dry, no snow, you know, but just really cold lake effect and you know, wind and all that sort of thing. So so that's a very cold looking album cover. And then, you know, they use a lot of blue in their album covers.
You do.
And they're just, you know, and they're that quintessential, like I say, Canadian band. So you think of that all the time, Winter and those guys.
Yeah, Caress of Steel also is very kind of just yeah. All right, some more winter settings here. Iron Maiden, Seventh Son of a Seventh Son. Doesn't get more cold than that. Here you got all the kind of like frozen figures, you know, whatever they are. And here, Stormwatch from Jethro Tull, you know.
Sure, yeah.
They never admit it, but that looks like Ian all bundled up there looking through the binoculars, and there you got the giant polar bear crashing through the iceberg.
Stormwatch, right in the title.
yeah. Supertramp, even in their quietest moments. So you got the piano sitting out on a hill in the snow. Why would anybody leave a piano out in the hill in the snow? I don't know. And my last one for today is King Animal by Soundgarden. Again, you've got, and you know, and this is really cool because you've got, I mean, this is just a weird album cover. So you got this weird pile of bones and skulls and whatnot from all sorts of different animals. You've got the trees and whatnot surrounding it, which it looks like it just snowed. Which this is a really cool album cover, as odd as it is. And here you have on the back, you've got all these trees with very light snow just sitting on it, just which is gorgeous. One of the things I love about winter is like after the first, you know, the snowfall, where the snow is hanging on the limbs of the trees and what leaves may still be on there. So that's pretty cool.
Nice. Okay, well, I'll just rattle through these honorable mentions. I mean, so this is kind of neat of a theme. Sin After Sin definitely has the same lining up of with UFO Obsession, with that cold clinical production, and a little bit of the a little bit also with the AC/DC album, The Razor's Edge. And another one that goes always in my mind since the day it came out pretty well, that feels the same way and lines up for the same reasons, is Thin Lizzy Jailbreak. You know, obviously this is kind of a hot scene in the middle, but to me, this has very, very steely, trebly, bright production, very meticulous. So it sounds like Sin After Sin to me. It sounds a little bit like Obsession. And I've never been able to shake the association association of that production sound with the black and steel of that. You know, I had another Thin Lizzy out. This is more almost like the Smiths idea, right? Where you're just thinking bleak, poverty, old photo, black and white. So that's more like a very different than the Jailbreak situation. It just leaves you cold because you think we have no heat in this flat, right? And then I've got some Johannes there, Fate's Warning.
Yeah, good. That's
nice,
a
good old cold one.
Yep.
And then you know, along the vibe of these you know, these you know, nice graphic design ones, a few from Nevermore here that feel cold.
Yep.
You know, In Memory. So some of the monochromatic thing going on. Some My Dying Bride stuff that looks quite cold.
Yep.
You know, The Voice of the Wretched. There's your total frost thing going on.
Yep.
Yeah, Turn Loose the Swans. There we go. And yeah, Angel in the Dark River, you know, right in the title. That's cold. You know, and then you've got your gothic thing. The Damned is not a very cold band, but when the Damned had their gothic phase, I mean, there you go with the black and white. A lot of goth albums are black and white, and they're made to, you know, you're supposed to feel cold. Goth thing is just a very cold thing. It's like you see those pictures out in the summer of the beach, and they're funny, laughable, ironic. But I mean, goth, the whole thing is cold and winter and snow, just kind of like the black metal thing, right?
Yep.
And then a little along those lines, you know, Stranglers have a couple where they're, you know, they're considered a little bit gothic, I suppose, but not really too many cold album covers. This is just cold because it's creepy and scary.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you know, the famous Giants album cover. Right? And then what else did I have kicking around? Just a couple more here that don't fit, and I pulled them out because I thought they fit, and they really don't, because they're almost like Hot and Blue instead. So Trouble the Skull and Children of Autumn. There we go. Follow the Reaper, right? So there you go. That's all the chaos of everything I pulled to talk about for this.
I need to go grab my jacket now. I'm cold.
Exactly. Yeah.
So there you have it, everybody. A look at some cold album covers. I'm sure there's others that we didn't think of. So in the comments below, throw some of the ones down there that you think kind of give you that feeling of cold temperatures, cold and clinical and steely and all that sort of thing. So Martin, what's happening on the podcast front, the Contrarians, books, all that sort of thing?
Yeah, so the podcast, History in 5 Songs with Martin Popoff. The last one was it self-titled or no, it was Songs You Dare Not Cover. I don't think that's the exact title, but I did that. And Contrarians just had, I wasn't part of this episode, but we just put out one, What If Kiss Alive 4 came out on time. So we did that one. And what was the other one that's, there was another Contrarians, I forget, maybe it was one of our Dark Horse panels, but yeah, that's kind of what's been going on. There's more happy. There's going to be an El Loco one coming up with me and Ralph, and yeah, just working on various book projects at the same time. Any of my books, again, martinpopoff.com for that stuff.
Cool, sounds good. So let's see, coming up here on the channel, we've got tomorrow is the UK Connection, where Simon, Stephen, and I will be ranking the songs on a classic album once again, and that album is Shout at the Devil by Motley Crue. Yes, you've heard that right. Pete is actually going to be talking about a Motley Crue album tomorrow, along with Simon and Stephen. So that was actually a lot of fun. So you guys will enjoy that. And then Sunday, we've got ranking the albums of Venom. Chris Allen and myself finally did get to that. So that's coming up on Sunday. And then we kick off the work week once again. Actually, no Hudson Valley Squares on Monday because it's a holiday here in the States. So you'll get a Q&A show with yours truly at 8:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time Monday night on Labor Day. So stay tuned for that. And also, we're less than a month away from Sea Tranquility Fall Fest, October 1st at the Chance in Poughkeepsie, New York. So join Martin and myself and the crew from the Hudson Valley Squares and in the Prague Seat and the Monsters Den and all sorts of folks who participate on Sea Tranquility will be there in person. Afternoon is all recreating some of the shows we do here on the channel live in front of you guys, the audience. And then during the evening hours, we've got music from Sonus Umbra featuring Louis Nasser, Epic Tantrum, great prog band from upstate New York. And of course, we've got Pat Travers Band, Vanilla Fudge, and Nectar, 3 classic 70s bands who are going to rock your socks off. Also on hand, Chris Caffrey from Trans-Siberian Orchestra and Sabotage doing a Q&A, and Andy Powell, founding member, vocalist, and guitarist from Wishbone Ash, also doing a Q&A. So a lot of cool stuff, Martin. I can't wait. Be good to find. Martin and I will finally get to hang out in person for the first time ever.
Yeah, it's going to be a blast for sure.
Yeah. So it'll be a lot of fun. So come out, everybody. Get your tickets now, and have a beer with us and chat with us, and it's going to be a fun day of music and talk, and just a lot of good times. So we'll see you all then. So take care, everybody. Visit us on the web at www.seaoftranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube. All together, all the damn time. For Martin Popoff, I am Pete Pardo. We'll see you next Friday here at the Funhouse, everybody. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.